Please welcome to the stage past District Governor Sean Sawyer from Rotary District 7545.
Good morning. While this may be sadly the last day of our event, I assure you it is one that is still going to be full of fun and activity and action-packed. For some reason, they have brought the most long-winded person to come out and remind everyone that because we have a full schedule, we need to keep things moving along the best we can. But nevertheless, with that said, I have the pleasure of introducing our first presenter for the day, Bishop Orlando Allen Wilson. He is the senior pastor of the New Antioch Church here in Baltimore, Maryland. He was ordained at a young age, has committed his life to service and ministry in this community and beyond for over 40 years, and has led his congregation for nearly the last 35, and will celebrate this pastoral milestone in calendar year 2023. He is academically accomplished in a wide array of fields, some of which I'm sure he plans to share with us this morning. But for purposes of introducing him, let it be known that he is an adjunct professor at Morgan State University here in Baltimore. He is a local radio personality, accomplished singer, songwriter, and producer of music, so who knows where that may take us this morning. Most importantly, he believes that life moves at the speed of relationship and is committed to building better relationships in order to build better people. In the words of the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Please join me in providing a warm Rotary welcome to Bishop Orlando Allen Wilson.
Well, good morning to everyone. It is an absolute joy and a privilege to be able to share with you on this morning and to see everyone so early and to be vibrant and vigorous. I tell you, it's an absolute joy. Let me say to you, thank you for this great opportunity, and what wonderful music to kind of become the jump board or the springboard for what we're about to do. And I want to thank all of those who had any play or to give me the opportunity to be able to share with you. I'm so thankful to be able to share with elect District Governor Dolores and her husband James, who have been a part of our church, and then for all of you. Dolores. And so I'm just so thankful that we've had so many years to share together. And of course, not only that, I'm thankful for the work that you as Rotarians are doing. Such a wonderful job to make such a great impact. As a matter of fact, I've had the privilege of being a part of Rotary myself at the Pikesville location here in Maryland. But I got some woo back, some woo woo. All right. But in the midst of that, I've moved. So I've moved to and relocated to Havre de Grace, Maryland. And I'm trying to get redirected because I moved after while COVID was taking place. So I'm sure I'm going to work that out or get it worked out. But I'm very much supportive of all the work that has happened and transpired with Rotarians all over the world. So give yourselves a hand clap. And look, so I've been told, I'm sure you heard at least somewhat a bit of my bio, and you all know that at least I am a preacher. I've got other titles, but preaching is in me, and I do want you to know I've been told that whatever I do don't sound too much like a preacher. So I understand that for some of you, you're nervous that a preacher is speaking to you early on Sunday morning. And I want you to know that I've made up my mind that there are two things that I'm not going to do to sound like a preacher. And one of those is I'm not going to holler at you. I'm not going to do that. So you can rest assured that I'm going to do everything that I can to not raise my voice. And then the second thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to talk too long. And so you can rest assured that I will do the 3 B's of public speaking. And that is that, of course, I'm going to try to be as brilliant as possible. I'm going to try to be as brief as I can. And then, of course, I'm going to do everything I can to be seated. And so if you agree with all of those things, come on and clap ahead of time. That'll help my brilliance. I don't know if the fact that we've had breakfast helps me or hurts me. They kept asking me, do you want something to eat? And I said, well, no, I think I better not do that, because if I eat, it might slow me down. And if I slow down, I might talk long because, you know, food can be distracting right before you have to get up and do something. So I want you to know that I'm diligent about being brief and being seated. So I made sure that I didn't eat breakfast so that I wouldn't be distracted. But after I finish, I may engage and indulge because I will have accomplished and finished the assignment that I've been given. Because of that, and because I've made the decision, of course, to be brilliant, hopefully, and to be brief in a very encouraging way, and then, of course, to be seated, these next few moments that we're going to focus and we're going to have a time to share is going to simply be about time. It just seems befitting that, in fact, this video makes known the fact that time is limited. And with all that we've been through and all that we've had to face, I think time is a good thing that we ought to pay much attention to, particularly in light of all the challenges and the upheavals that we've had. For time has become a powerful part of life that we must revisit, reevaluate, and possibly reset our entire perspective about. Time is important. Time is imperative, and I must differ with the lyrics of the Rolling Stones where they said, "Time is on my side," because I think many of us can agree that now maybe time may not be on our side, that maybe time is proving to us that it is ultimately a commodity that we must well respect. Time's important. It's imperative, and it's important that we understand the importance of it. As a matter of fact, because of all that we've had to encounter and all that we've had to endure, I would agree with the hymnologist who says these words, and that is that time is filled with swift transition, naught of earth unmoved can stand. We should build our hopes on things eternal. We should do everything that we can to hold to God's unchanging hand. In the U.S., life expectancy is about 78 years, which is approximately 41 million minutes. We know that these, of course, these minutes change based upon where you live, who your parents are, what your economic status is, what part of town you're living in, the time that you're born in, whether you have good health insurance, whether you have to face disease or challenge, or possibly the neighborhood you live in. All of these things affect those 41 million minutes. Whatever the case, time is a commodity. And at least for us as human beings, time is limited. I know it doesn't sound good, and maybe it even sounds a bit morbid, but time is limited. I was just sitting there talking, and I was making reference to the fact that as much as we don't like it, I used to be in the young crowd. Now I'm in the old crowd. Ironically, I had to bury an aunt on yesterday. She was 99 years old. She was a smidgen away from 100. And I looked at all of my cousins and all the people that I was related to, and I said, isn't it ironic that we used to be the young crowd and now we're the old crowd? They're looking at us like, you know, we're not young anymore. And the truth is, it's just a simple reminder that time is a commodity. Time is limited. It's because time is limited and time is a commodity. Of course, I've learned just a few things that I'd like to quickly share with you as I try to be brief and then, of course, be seated. And that is that, first of all, time is valuable. It's very valuable, and sometimes we don't value time until we come to the end or the close of the time that we have. Time is valuable. But not only that, I figured out that you must do valuable things with valuable time, for there will come a time when time is gone. Maybe we have to take into real account what we're doing with the time that we have. Isn't it ironic that 41 million minutes begins to tick-tock at the moment that you come out of the womb? At the moment that you're born, 41 million minutes starts diminishing, depleting, starts going down. And that's with the hope that you'll get your full 41 million. Time is important. It's valuable. We've got to do valuable things, which means you've got to value your time. Value your time by prioritizing what's important, valuing your time by not wasting time, and valuing time by purposing your time. Life is about purpose. I want to encourage you about that because it becomes so imperative, even in the midst of all of this, that we understand the importance of time and understand how imperative it is that we recognize time. So much so that these words, I hope, speak to you. I have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Didn't pick it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. Give account if I abuse it. There's no way I can refuse it. Just a tiny little minute. But eternity is in it. Time is important. I'm almost done. I'm trying to be as brilliant as I can. I hope I'm not being too overbearing, but let me also say this to you, that in the brevity of this minute that I have, as leaders, people are dependent upon us. They're dependent upon us to understand the value and the commodity of time. That as you lead in all that you do and all the things that you try to promote and perpetuate that are important to make a difference, as leaders, people are depending on you to understand the importance of time. As a matter of fact, if I could, I'd give you this scripture that I hope would help you and be an encouragement to you. And only for a point of reference, I don't want to put you in on a Sunday morning service, but I would say this to you, and this is what scripture declares: redeem the time. Make sure that you take care of the time that you have. Why? Because time is short, it is brief, and it is one that you must always give an account for. As leaders, I encourage you that what we must do is we must discern the time. People are expectant of us to be able to discern the time, and I'd give you the words of Marvin Gaye, who sang a song entitled, "What's Going On?" With everything that's happening, with everything that's taking place, what's going on? How do we interpret what's happening now? With all the things that we've had to face, from COVID, from disease, from challenge and monkeypox, and the list goes on, and all of the things that happen in all of the areas and all of the challenges that meet us, there has to be somebody, and why not you, who is able to discern and interpret what is going on so that you can make good choices and good decisions about what needs to be a priority. Somebody's got to be able to say, this is what's happening, what's going on. I want you to understand that also we got to get to a place where we know that when you are able to discern the time, it helps you to understand what is threatening my effectiveness in the time that I have. As we look at this time, and there's so much that needs to happen, so much that needs to take place, what is the greatest threat to our effectiveness in relationship to the things that we need to discern for this time? What is it that should be priority? What is it that has to happen? What opportunity in all that we have do we have to make a difference? How do I use what I have that I might be able to make a difference in the time that I have? Okay, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm not going to mess with you long. I told you I'm going to be brilliant. I'm going to be brief. And I'm going to be seated. But can I tell you one more thing? And that is this. As leaders, not only are we expected to discern the time, but we are expected to help others navigate through the time. If I had time, and my time is short because I'm trying to be brief so I can be seated, I would suggest to you that there are two types of time. There's what we understand to be chronological time. Chronological time is basically how we measure time. Time is measured by calendar. It's measured by minutes, seconds, hours, days, months, years. But not only do we have chronological time, there is something known as kairos time, which would best be understood as event time. The best example that I could give you is this. I was talking to one of my congregants, and they said to me, "Oh, Bishop, I just want you to know I prayed to God 5 minutes ago, and I'm waiting for God to answer my prayer." I said, "Okay." He said, "If God heard me, he's going to answer very quickly." I said, "I'm sure, but I need you to understand something." They said, "What is it?" I said, "Remember, a day to us is ultimately, or day to God is like 1,000 years to us." They said, "So, Bishop, I've got to wait 1,000 years before God answers my prayer?" I said, no, not at all. I said, I just need you to understand how God works. And God works this way. He never moves based upon your calendar because time does not limit God. I said, remember, God always moves based on an event. So though you prayed 5 minutes ago, that 5 minutes is not what matters to God. What matters to God is an event that needs to take place, that God will meet you at the event, so that the event is the very thing that makes the difference in God's measurement of time. Now you've got to move to the place where you meet the event so God will match your time. I suspect that maybe we should come a bit more Kairos oriented, to understand that we are not simply measuring only by calendar, but we are measuring by event. What difference can an event make so that we make a difference, and in many cases, the very difference that we make is met by so much other power that will be released, that indeed we might make a difference in people's lives. I've got to go. I'm done. I told you I would be brief and I would be seated, but can I tell you one more thing? So redeem the time. Redeem the time. We must be careful how we live. That's what redeem means. Don't live like people who don't understand the value of time. That even as leaders, as we discern time, as we navigate through time, and we understand the difference between a chronos and a kairos, a calendar and an event, we must redeem that time. Redeem means simply buy back. It means to, in essence, regain the possession of it. Time is a gift from God, and nobody knows how much time can be allotted. So you must redeem it, which means you must do everything you can with the time that you have. Remember, I said I wasn't going to holler at you and I wasn't going to take long. If I was at my church, this would probably be a good place to holler, but I'm not going to do it. I would simply say to you, be careful of the decisions that you make with the time that you have. Discern the time. Navigate through the time, which can only best be understood between the difference of calendar time and event time. And in redeeming the time, it means to be aware that from every moment the clock continues to tick-tock. We must make the most of every minute. And I say to you these words, as I said before, and I'll give you this: in each day there are 24 hours, 1,440 minutes, 86,400 seconds, and every one of them is a precious gift from God. Time is something we feel we never have enough of, yet we give it away so easily. Someone said that time is free, but it's priceless. You can't own it, but you can use it. You can't keep it, but you can spend it. And once you've lost it, you can never get it back. So you have only just a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Didn't pick it, didn't choose it, but it's up to you to use it. Must give account if you abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. Thank you for this minute. Have a wonderful day. May you be blessed.
We certainly want to thank Bishop Wilson for his wonderful words about our use of time. As Rotarians, we do know that time is precious, time is crucial, and it's always time to roll up our sleeves and get to work. My name is Rich Kirschner. I'm the past district governor from District 6960, and I am substituting this morning for Tom Wagner. It's a little dark up here. Is there any way to get some more light? I see somebody trying. Well, despite that, I'm going to try my best, okay? For many of you, your best friends may be in this room, thank you, this morning. And I'm ever mindful that if not for Rotary, we might never have met. Many of you could easily make the same statement. For many of us, the best friends we have, we met through Rotary. And we must always be mindful and thankful and celebrate the fact that Rotary brought us together. It's this concept that I choose to apply for the next portion of our meeting this morning as we pause for a moment and remember some of our friends that have passed from our midst since we last met. Some may think this is a sad time of mourning, but today I choose not to mourn but to celebrate. Because of Rotary, we were privileged to know them, to enjoy meals together, to laugh at some of the stories that we shared, to cry with them when we witnessed the suffering that was all around us, to toil and to work alongside them to make the world a little better for just a little while, better today than it was yesterday. There's a poem that begins, not how did they die, but how did they live? Not what did they gain, but what did they give? These whom we remember this morning lived a life of service, and they gave not only of their worldly possessions, but most importantly of their time, which is our most precious gift. So today, as we remember these friends, I choose to celebrate their life as a life well lived, to cherish their friendship, and be thankful to Rotary for bringing us together. I invite you to join with me. From District 6970, Edwin W. Peck. Edwin served District 694, 1966 through 1967. From District 7570, Sidney D. Mason. Sidney served what is now District 7550 in 1977-78. From District 7610, Hewko Heichman. Hugh served District 760 in 1981-82. From District 7690, Wade W. Phillips. Wade served District 769 in 1982 and 83. From District 7730, John Talbot Capps III. John T. served District 773 in 1985 and 86. And from District 7305, Andrew G. Ullom. Andrew served what is now District 7305 in 1985 and 86. From District 6980, Roger A. Pierce. Roger served District 698 in 1986 and 87. From District 7770, James LaPala. James served District 665 in 1987 through 88. From District 7710, Douglas Armour Bryant. Douglas served what is now District 7710 in 1988-89. From District 7690, Ralph H. Bowden. Ralph served District 769 in 1988 and 89. From District 6940, Stephen H. Grimes. Stephen served District 696 in 1990-91. From District 7670, Fred D. Barnes. Fred served District 7670 in 1991-92. From District 7600, Alan P. Geddes, who served District 7600 in 1993-94. From District 7280, H. Charles Schultz. Chuck served District 7280 in 1993-94. From District 6960, Lawrence S. Wright. Lawrence served District 6250 in 1994-95. From District 7020, Edgar M. Isles. Edgar served District 7020 in 1994-95. From District 7305, Robert A. Hilberry. Robert served District 7330 in 1994-95. From District 7690, Carol Summerlin. Carol served District 7690 in 1996-97. From District 7280, Robert J. Lawton. Robert served District 7280 in 1996-97. And from District 7620, H. Kenneth Shook. Kenneth served District 7620 in 1997-98. From District 6950, Harris F. Brown. Harris served District 6950 in 1997-98. From District 6960, Arthur S. Tribby. And Arthur served District 7530 in 2001-2002. From District 7280, Ralph Detweiler. Ralph served District 7280 in 2005 and 6. From District 6930, Lawrence G. Labadie. Larry served District 6930 in 2006 and 7. From District 7630, Keith T. Smith. Keith served District 7630 in 2006 and 7. And from District 7750, Richard A. Waugh. Richard served District 7750 in 2006 and 7. From District 7020, Alistair J. Patterson. Alistair served District 7020, 2006 and 7. And from District 6960, Margaret Cipher. Margie served District 6960 in 2008 and 9. From District 7710, Serge Dyhoff. Serge served District 7710 in 2010 and 11. From District 7690, Terry Titus. Terry served District 7690 in 2011 and 12. From District 6920, Margaret Jacobs. Margaret served District 6920 in 2018 and 19. And from District 7620, Jimmy Gorski. Jimmy served District 7620 in 2020 and 21. So yes, we miss our friends, but thanks to Rotary, we were blessed to have them known to us and us known to them. To close this part of our memorial, I want to offer a short inspirational thought by a Rotarian from a Rotary club in London, and perhaps you have heard this said. We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. May the memory of these friends that we have acknowledged this morning serve as our inspiration to go out in this place, to make a life, and to use our time together wisely. And now, will you please enjoy an uplifting video that encourages us to remember each of them and to remember each other for what we mean to one another.
Rotarians and guests, please welcome to the stage the General Chair for the 2022 Impact Summit, past District Governor Cynde Covington.
Thank you all for being with us this morning, and thank you, Bishop Wilson, and thank you, Rich, for those moving tributes and wonderful words about time. I tell you, we're going to thank all of those that have been a part of contributing to making this summit such a success, and we're going to thank the executive team and all of those members later, but there are some valuable people that contribute to making this a success. As we start our planning behind the scenes, we had an event planning team, we had the Encore team that helps with all of the AV and getting this smoothly going, security, the front desk, the parking, the bell stand, the banquet staff, our wonderful chef. There's a lot of things that we do on the surface that you see, and you thank all of us on the EC team all the time. But right now, I'd like to take a moment to thank all the people who have really made this such a spectacular event and made sure that everything went off without a hitch. So to all of you standing up here, thank you very, very much. Thank you, thank you. You know, we talk about the family of Rotary, but I got to know so many of you all on a first name basis, running behind in the freight elevator so I wouldn't have to take the glass elevator, making sure that we shifted meals. Chef, thank you so much for being very creative with us, and staff that shifted things so many times to make this a special event for you. So thank you all again. Now we have another special presentation, and this individual does not need any introduction because he was introduced the other day. It is the Rotary Foundation trustees, Aziz Menon. I've also gotten to know his lovely wife, Samina, on this visit. Thank you so much for coming and giving us a chance to get to know you. Aziz is going to share with you some of the stories about the flooding in Pakistan. Aziz?
A very good morning and greetings, Rotary leaders and Rotarians. I'm truly honored to have the honor of representing Foundation today on behalf of Chairman Ian Risley, and to give all of you an update on what we have been able to do and what we hope to accomplish and what initiatives can be part of it. Rotary is about people of action working together. There are no shortages of forces seeking to drive us apart. But what brings us together is stronger, a shared mission, shared goal, and shared vision for a better world. When the world needs us, we step in. Foundation was founded in the year 1917, and ever since that day, we have been supporting Rotary members as they do all the part in supporting the communities. We continue to fight polio. Polio is back in the news due to some surprising outbreaks of polio variants in Israel, in UK, and in the suburbs of New York. The level of fear about polio is rising, and while a good case can be made that this panic is unwarranted, there is an important truth behind this fear. Until polio is eliminated everywhere, it will continue to threaten every child anywhere. Rotary and its global partners have a strategy to stop transmission. We need your support. Our goal for the Foundation Polio Plus Fund is $50 million, which would be matched by $100 million from Bill Melinda Gates Foundation, and it will become 150. So please keep giving, and also remember to give your DDF at least 20%. In addition to donating to polio, there are numerous other important ways you can assist Rotary Foundation. We do several global grants. Each global grant serves the community and makes a difference. The trustees of Rotary Foundation have now started the scale grant, program scale grant, which is the bigger amount, making a bigger difference. The first scale grant was given last year to Zambia. It was $2 million. $2 million came from World Bill Melinda Gates Foundation and $2 million from World Mission. So it became $6 million to fight malaria in Zambia. And the numbers what we have presently show that there has been a remarkable improvement. Next scale grant was given to Nigeria for mother and child. This was also a very important area because to improve the routine immunization and to cut down the infant mortality, this grant will play an important role. And the results are measurable. We are watching the numbers, and it is making a lot of difference. When hurricane hit, Rotary is there. Supported by the Rotary Foundation, when there is any pandemic, Rotary is there. The Rotary Foundation went into action immediately after COVID-19, and we are glad that we left it behind. For Ukraine also, $15 million were raised, and more is being done to support our Rotarians and friends in Ukraine. We put our humanitarian networks and resources to work, providing help where it was needed the most. As a result, we provided food, shelter, and other necessities to the millions of displaced people who continue to seek support. Pakistan has, my own country, has gone through a flooding, and Rotarians there are doing a lot. The Rotary Foundation is supporting disaster grants which were of $25,000 have been raised to $50,000, and we are trying to create a fund like the one we did for Ukraine. This would be discussed next week in the Joint Trustees Director meeting. For this year, the Rotary Foundation trustees have set a goal of raising $430 million. This is the highest amount set ever before, and I'm sure that with your generosity, we will be able to accomplish that. Rotarians and Rotractors are doing a great job. Rotractors can now apply for a global grant on their own. This is the big change. If we want to build the best possible Rotary and Rotary Foundation for generations to come, we need to be the best we can. We need to ensure that our organization is inclusive, equitable, and open to diversity of all kinds. While we are not where we want to be yet, we are getting closer. Now clubs with innovative meeting schedules are making it possible for young people to be fully engaged members of Rotary. We are seeking an increase of women in leadership role. We have one Rotary president. We would be having another one, and more will follow. We are not doing this because we'd like to look good on paper or add token diversity to our leadership. As a foundation, we want to create an experience in which all people are welcome, respected, and valued. The most we reflect the diversity of our communities, the better we will be. After all, that's what Rotary is about. People of action everywhere coming together to effect positive change. Thank you, my friends. And I have a very small video showing the disaster done by the flooding. And just in the words of the UN Secretary General who came and toured Pakistan, he said, Pakistan can never be the same again. So may we have that video, please?
The floods in Pakistan have swept away roads, homes, schools, and hospitals across the country, displacing more than 33 million people in the process, with more than 2,000 people losing their lives. The displaced have been forced to leave their homes in search for safety, which isn't easily found, leaving all their belongings behind, which will never be found again. To add to that, nearly all of the country's crops, along with thousands of livestock and stores of wheat and fertilizer, have been damaged, prompting warnings of a looming food crisis. Meanwhile, roads and bridges too are damaged, limiting access to cities and making it more difficult to respond to the crisis. The Pakistani government and relief organizations are doing their best to provide relief. But for those affected, it has to come sooner.
कुछ भी नहीं मिला तो खाने के लिए एक टाइम की रोटी मिलती है निके निके बच्चे ऊपर बारिश है हम कहां जाएं
Flood water covers around a third of the country, including its agricultural belt, while the rains continue to cause havoc. The estimated damage from this disaster is estimated to be well above $10 billion. People are in dire need as the floods have uprooted them from their homes and affected their lives forever. This comes at a time when they were already suffering under the weight of inflation and the prices of essential commodities were soaring. The visuals you see on the screen have been common in cities across the country, and it will take a long time to start recovering from the damage. Not only are people suffering, but moving forward, the country's economy too will take a hit as agricultural exports have been swept away. Meanwhile, internally displaced persons are forced to try and find safer places to reside. Given the scale of the damage, it is difficult to reach people with rations and medicines. Canals have also been breached, destroying villages, and displacing people who are now forced to sleep without shelter. In such circumstances, it is the moral responsibility for all to come together and step up to support those who are in need. Without this support, the humanitarian crisis will only get worse over time. Governments of the world, humanitarian organizations, NGOs, and organizations like Rotary International are contributing towards mitigating this catastrophe. Pakistan has suffered this disaster as a result of global warming, and it must be mentioned here that the country is paying the price for global warming despite not even contributing 1% of the carbon emissions of the world.
Please welcome to the stage the most famous Scotsman in Rotary, past District Governor George Robertson-Burnett, from Rotary District 6890.
Thank you, Trustee Aziz Memon, for that Rotary Foundation update. We thank you for your words and for your attendance at our Impact Summit, the second most famous Scotsman in Rotary. There is, of course, Gordon McAnally. He and I were having a conversation in a hotel in Chicago quite recently, and there were a lot of Rotarians there, and we were sort of in hushed voices talking to one another. And someone came over and said, "You guys don't need to whisper. We can't understand a word you're saying." It's absolutely true. See, you know, the way we speak is sort of a mixed blessing. You know, we kind of suffer from foot and mouth disease. You know, every time we open our mouths, we are footing it, because you know, we have no filter in Scotland. So please excuse me for that this morning. It's called aphthe epizooticae, for the non-veterinarians in the audience. That is foot and mouth disease. Anyway, so what did you think of that fabulous British Mania last night? Was that amazing? Yeah, baby, it was fab. Do you remember when we used to say fab? I haven't heard that in a long time. I have to tell you that the band were a bit shocked. And this speaks to something that we Rotarians have got to try and address. They actually thought that they were going to have a tough job last night because they thought they would be playing their music to people who would not in any way stand up, dance, interact. They thought, Rotarians, they'll just sit there. This is going to be tough. Were they wrong in a big way? But it shows that we have an image problem to address. And I'm sure you all did a great job last night addressing that image, and I do appreciate it. So what have we got lined up for you this morning, for the rest of the morning? We have an excellent and impactful program. So no slipping away, folks. Just stick with us. You won't want to miss the updates, to say nothing of the grand prize draw. Woo! You won't want to miss that. We'll soon have a very important polio update. Following this, we will have a presentation on making a difference in the Ukraine. I'm sure you won't want to miss finding out how we have and can impact the Ukraine. How appropriate is it that we will then welcome back to the stage our General Secretary and CEO, John Hewko, who will update us on the state of Rotary. On the final lap, we will promo the Melbourne Convention and reveal the details of the 2023 Zone Summit. What? You already know what it is? Well, just play along with this, will you? Be shocked. After Jeremy gives us his final comments, we'll be treated to a musical outro that I promise you, you will not want to miss. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker this morning, and this will be so easy. Not only is he a friend, I am sure he is known to everyone in the room, as he is our past Rotary International Director from Dunwoody, Georgia, Robert Hall. And I'm also delighted to see Charlene here. Hi, Charlene. I have to say, I always look forward to Charlene's hugs more than I look forward to Robert's, but never mind. Robert has held too many positions in Rotary to mention here, but perhaps is best known as a champion of the Polio Plus effort, and that's what he will talk to us about today. Robert may famously not be in Charlene's wildest dreams, but he sure is in her heart, and he is in ours. Please welcome to the stage past Rotary International Director, Robert Hall.
Well, I am Robert Hall. Let me tell you, 1949, a good friend of mine contracted polio. She had excellent rehabilitation. She traveled, she walked, went everywhere, just like you and me. But after about 50 plus years, polio, as Jeffrey said, striked again her, violently struck her, and she had post-polio syndrome. What happened in the early 2000s, she walked to the mailbox. Nobody was home. It was only about 150, 200 feet. She fell down, had to crawl back to her house. So for 15 years that she lived from then, she sat in the house in a wheelchair or in a lounge chair. She read 2 books a week, but she didn't get out. This is one of the reasons I am committed to eradicating polio. You probably know somebody just like this. We're saving the children of the world, but we're lamenting the people who have post-polio syndrome. So let me find out where my clicker is. And Gordon says my clicker, Gordon, here it is, got the green button, right? Okay, so we don't use, we came up with a new Facebook page. Instead of End Polio Now, we say together, we're going to eradicate, we're going to end polio from the face of the earth. So, I got the green button here. Let me just recognize, you saw in your book, I hope, the list of people, the list of zones and how your district did in polio giving this last year, and I appreciate putting that in there. Let me just point out that 2 of our districts here in the top 5 districts worldwide in polio giving. District 33 and District 70, Zone 33, District 7770 is number 8 in the world out of 530-something districts. Unbelievable. 34 and District 6910 is number 1 district in the world. Number 1 in the world. I also want to point out that you see a list of award recipients. The Polio Service Award recipients are in there, and there are, if you know Randy Lickey, he received the Regional Polio Service Award. And if you know Nick Hall from Tampa, he received the Polio Service Award. So I want you to congratulate them. We have some terrific people. Now, I got to get this clicker again, I'll go crazy. But let me just briefly, all these numbers you've heard, in fact, Aziz talked about some of these, and I want to thank Chairman, the convener, Director Jeremy, for including so much content on polio. It is our #1 priority. But this is where we were just a few days ago. Yeah, that might alarm you, the number of wild polio cases worldwide versus last year, and the vaccine derived. You've heard a lot about that. But what makes me feel good about the vaccine, about the wild polio cases, if you look on your left, that's 2020. That's Pakistan and Afghanistan. It's all over the place. But I saw this chart the other day, and Michelle Zafran, who used to be with WHO, is now a polio coordinator in France, said, Robert, it's not that bad. I can't do this well. I'm not even chewing gum, but I am walking. So you look on the right-hand side, and this made me feel so much better. Just a few places that polio exists in 2022. So we can get it done. The other thing, you've heard about this in New York State, you know, it was imported, the victim wasn't vaccinated. Look at the vaccination rate in Rockland County, and then it spread also to Orange, Sullivan, and Nassau counties, and is actually in the sewage system, wastewater system in New York City. This says, I used to have a slide that says it could be back in on an airplane ride, right? It actually has come back. And the state of New York governor considers this an immediate threat to public health and issued that statement. I want to introduce you, you know, I hope most all these people, but these I'm proud of. These are the people I get to work with every day in Zone 33. And Bernie's here, and Chuck's here, and Colleen Bonadonna is going to take Chuck's place come July 1 next year, and many of you know her already. She is a dynamo for polio, so they're doing a terrific job. And then in Zones 34, Kim Waters and Rick Hall and Lindsay Cancino in the islands. They're doing a terrific job and representing all we do for polio, eradicating, etc. These are new additions to our team. Kim Walden is an RPIC still. She'll join our team July 1, and she and Bob Hagan will be in charge of our social media. We waited, we wondered why nothing had been put on the Rotary website about polio, and then with staffing problems and COVID and all that, it's just a lack of people to do things, so we created our own social image. We have a Facebook page for End Polio, Together We End Polio now, and for Polio Plus Society. So Bob and Kim will be doing that next year. Doing that now. 3 things I want to just mention real quick. Number 1, World Polio Day. When is that? Why is that important for you to remember? It's my wife's birthday. I can't forget this. There's only 4 dates I got to remember. Anniversary, birthday, Christmas, and Mother's Day. That is it. But anyway, look, everything's available on this resource center. What's key, what we did this year to try to increase from 2,800 events to hopefully, I think, 5,000, that the End Polio coordinator with the district governor and the district Polio Plus chair is going to recognize one club in your district with a Paul Harris Fellow to give to a Rotarian who really made this event happen. Register the event, resources are all there, and we'd like to recognize somebody in your district. DDF, what we do different there this year. There's a new form. There's one form on the website that RI has. There's another one a couple of us created. Let me tell you what's different about it. Number 1, there's an additional to the World Polio World Fund match of $50 to 1. There's also a $50 to 1 from Rotarian. So that's a 1-to-1 match there. Means your contribution becomes 6 to 1 with the Gates match, and you can request on the form what global polio project you want your money to go to. You want to go to producing vaccine, you want to transport the vaccine to the kids, you want to do polio detection, monitoring the disease, you can specify where you want that to go. The last thing I want to show you is the Polio Plus Society. This I'm so excited about, that you can make every club in your district, every member of your district can make this their legacy. Whereas we only have about less than half the clubs that contribute a penny to polio every year, and less than, 1 out of 5 contribute anything to polio. I believe 50 cents, I believe that $10 a month, $100 a year is the minimum, can make this their legacy. To make this happen, I was so excited that we got Brenda Cressy to be our past trustee chair. You know Brenda. She is chairing this worldwide, and I think she is, I can't even keep up with Brenda. You know her. She's a dynamo. She works hard. She knows everybody. She'll make this happen for us. So I'm excited about it. I also want to just tell President Jennifer, thank you for the video she did the other day. I hope that you will take your painting from her brother and auction this off for at least a couple of $1,000s, and we can raise $1 million worldwide with Darren's painting. Now I want to ask Chuck Davidson to come up just a minute. Everybody knows this guy. He has been wonderful. So Chuck, I want to thank you and everybody that's important in this room. Oh, I didn't sign it. Anyway, everybody that's important in this room has signed it. Jeremy, Jennifer, Steph, John, Hewko. I want to thank you for all you've done for eradicating polio with us. Thanks, Bob. It takes a team. It takes a team. So I'm going to turn this over now to who's coming up. That you know what they say about the sequoia tree? Very shallow roots. Everybody together pulls together to eradicate polio. We're together. We're going to win. Thank you.
Rotarians and guests, please welcome to the stage District Governor-elect from Rotary District 6970, John Tabor.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for hanging in there this morning. We really appreciate it. Robert, thank you for your ongoing efforts to ensure that we keep our corporate program front and center. As an incoming governor, I am very aware of donor fatigue, but as you pointed out, it is more important than ever to continue our efforts and supporting the efforts to eradicate polio. As I said, I'm John Tabor. I'm the district governor-elect for District 6970, Northeast Florida. It gives me great pleasure this morning to bring on stage with me a speaker who's become a good friend from our Rotary service together. James Jorman is the immediate past president of the Rotary Club of Lviv International in Ukraine. He started his year full of enthusiasm and plans. He visited my community right at the beginning of his presidential year. He has family in the neighborhood, and like a good Rotarian, he came and visited my club, the Rotary Club of Orange Park Sunrise. He told us about his club. He told us about Rotary in Ukraine. He told us about their projects and his plans, and also about things in his adopted country. We exchanged flags and did all the things that you do when you visit a Rotary Club, and we started an infrequent correspondence at that point. In February of this year, everything completely changed. James relocated his Ukrainian wife and his family to Warsaw, Poland, and he began the work that he's going to tell you about this morning of coordinating his club's response to the crisis that was now engulfing his country. It is my honor to introduce to you this morning immediate past president James Jorman.
Thank you, John, and thank you for the very humbling applause. And thank you for the organizers for inviting me to speak this morning. Being very mindful of my time constraints and not wanting to violate the hallowed 3 Bs we heard declared this morning, I'm going to jump right in. I'd like to share, albeit in a very abbreviated form, my club's experience on the ground in Ukraine during the war. To acquaint you briefly with our club, we are relatively young, 7 years. I was president number 6. Before the war, we were half expats, half Ukrainians. I've got the clicker. To give you an idea of how we operated, key to that was our location. If I'm going to look at this screen, yeah, I can see that better. So if you see that green dot, that's where we were located. Oh, I've got the monitor. Fantastic. It's easier for me to see this screen, actually. So we were essentially on the border of Ukraine, the little green dot, Lviv, and Poland. And so over the years, our practice, most of the project work that we did was bringing in aid from medical beds to toys and food from Europe. And when you're bringing in a lot of things across the border, it's really essential to have a partner. So we partnered early on with a local NGO, Lvivska Samoobrona, who helped us on many, many projects with customs and shipping. And that became key later on to our response. So, on February 24th, when the bombs began to drop, our first reaction was dismay, despair, shock, and outrage. Unfortunately, our members were not spared the personal tragedy and suffering of the war. Some lost livelihoods, left their home. Unfortunately, some lost loved ones and friends. But as Trustee Aziz said just earlier today, when the world needs us as Rotarians, we step in. And I think all the members of my club went through a very personal process of shaking off that shell shock and getting to the business of our Rotarian work. For me, that fateful moment came shortly after I arrived in Poland with my family. I got a phone call. It was the wrong number. An elderly woman, confused, distraught, crying, searching for her neighbor. I couldn't help her. I apologized. I wished her to stay safe. She thanked me. And I hung up, slumped over on the table in the cafe I was sitting at, and began heaving with sobs. I wasn't sure that I could create a missing persons hotline or helpline in Ukraine, but I was sure I was going back to serve out my president year with my team, and I was going to try. And I did. And of course, we were stunned, but as Rotarians, that fight response kicked in, replacing the earlier flight response. We rallied together, and in the early days of mustering our response, I can only describe that period as frantic triage. Just remember fielding calls, unending calls of offers of support, of concern. One of those calls was from John, asking how we could help. Calls like that ultimately ended up leading to amazing, hugely impactful projects for Ukraine, which I know John will speak a little bit about at the end of this presentation. And so what we did, we took stock of our situation, we re-strategized, we ventured kind of with warp speed into new territory for us, doing things like hiring paid staff, operating, funding, running a warehouse, organizing our local Rotaract club to take shifts to do a 24-hour call and message and communication center. Sometime after we began that effort, I don't want to hit this too many times and skip through slides, but do I got to point this somewhere, John? There we go. Now, I know you can't read that, but sometime after we began, Rotary International recognized our club by name, and one of the things they found noteworthy was how we coordinated the needs of hospitals, local authorities, and created an online table. They mentioned that here for our donors. We had to. The first shipment of international aid we got in the second week of the war contained things like half-empty shampoo bottles, used razors, and secondhand knickers. Our well-intentioned donors understood the gravity of our situation, but they didn't quite understand what was really needed. So we went about fixing that. And so, with the help of amazing partners, we sustained what I believe was a pretty unprecedented aid effort. This is kind of the thumbnail version of what we accomplished from March to the end of my president year. I can see about $5 million in aid. And that number down at the bottom in DF grants, I submitted the slides before we got the great news just 3 days ago that Rotary International had approved our third round of disaster response grants for $375,000. So that number has changed. And what that aid looked like was everything from generators, as you see here, that could power the municipal water supply in the event of an outage, to Legos for internally displaced children who had moved to Lviv. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fire trucks. We received generous support from many people in this room, District 6990, our good friends in 69-7 and 59-10. And the most recent, 2 trucks with the support of District 7920. Thank you. Whoop. But these statistics they're just a shorthand. They only tell part of the story. A story that was for us a lived experience. The reports back from the front line of how what we were doing was saving lives. It was a real story of frantic, frenetic activity, of bizarre things like collecting packages that had fallen out of the back of a van around Lviv where they hadn't secured the door, or well-meaning donors who came into Ukraine carrying bandages and their Tesla Model 3 and full flak jackets and helmets, but they didn't have spares for the 2 tires they blew on that vehicle within 10 minutes of crossing into unpaved road in Ukraine. The things we witnessed, saw, and heard were harrowing, horrific, and heartbreaking. But in the midst of all that, there was so much that was inspiring. The world has come to recognize the spirit of the Ukrainian people, and that we drew inspiration daily from witnessing that. From the internally displaced people who had lost everything in the East, came to Lviv and wanted to volunteer with us to help at the food kitchen. From the little girl about my daughter's age, a 7-year-old girl who lost half of her left forehead and frontal lobe and had a prognosis of inoperable and clinical brain death. But the German volunteers with Samaritan's Purse and local Lviv surgeons not only saved her life, but when we encountered her, she was playing, smiling, and laughing. These people's spirit inspired us to be as equally spirited in our response and our commitment. There are so many stories I would love to share, and I have to resist. Again, the 3 Bs today. And I do want to share, at least with the time I have remaining, one of the key things that enabled us to achieve what we did. It was international experience and the partnerships that bore. When the chaos and tragedy enfolded our club and our lives, it was our partnerships that were there to see us through. For 4 Christmases, every year before the war, we worked with 2 German organizations, Freunde Helfen and German Roundtable, with one of our members who lived in Germany. And we brought in thousands of Christmas presents packed by German children for disadvantaged Ukrainian children. When the war broke out, we worked with those same partners to bring 70 trucks. They raised $3 million worth of aid in just the first 2 months. And managing that kind of logistics, we relied heavily on that partner that I mentioned earlier, Lvivska Samobrona. It was a very fluidly changing border situation. We were lucky to have them. And when District 7920 and Metro Bethesda wanted to send first aid kits to Ukraine, they partnered with United Help Ukraine. They gathered together, well, there they are. They gathered together and assembled kits, and United Help Ukraine helped ship those. And that is a partnership that continues. They are working with us as a key partner in implementing these disaster response grants that I mentioned. And they've even backfilled our club when we've run low on first aid items. The club I partnered with in my short time in Poland continues to be a steward of our European account. We've had over $500,000 flow through that account. We continue to use it to purchase things that are needed desperately in Ukraine, but not available there. So with our partners, we didn't have to invent anything or create anything new. We just built and scaled up on what we had. If there's one takeaway that I hope informs your planning and your vision for your districts, it is to see that prioritizing international service and making those kind of connections isn't just about spreading the good that you do. It's about forging partnerships that can become multipliers of the impact you have. And yesterday, President Jennifer Jones shared a story of how in Zambia, witnessing the good work Rotary was doing there, the young people created a Rotaract Club, which then spawned the creation of a Rotary Club. So we see it can even increase our membership as an organization. And I think the DGs can have an impact with steps like encouraging every club in their district to do at least one global grant a year, creating, designing, workshops or conferences dedicated to international service, global grants, working to identify. Okay, I'm going to. Yeah, see, I'm violating the 3 Bs. So I just want to say, you don't have to be a club like ours sitting at the epicenter of a crisis to have an international impact. People like Daniel Fisher from 7920 and John, who have helped raise over $500,000 in these district response grants, are living proof of that. And before I hand it over to you, John, I just want to leave you with something that I feel very strongly about because I've seen it so many times. When you focus and work internationally, you not only spread the good you do to a suffering world, you touch so many people and you change lives. And I guarantee you one of those lives will be yours. I thank you for the time. I'm going to punt it back over to you, John.
Thank you, James. Time does not permit to talk about what has been involved in putting together this coalition. It is important to understand that James and what his club did put together a network of Rotarians and people in the country that very quickly identified the need. We had intelligence on the ground that told us where the need needed to be. We had partners who were able to deliver aid into the country in a very efficient, effective way. And so what we were able to do, and it was really led by 7620 here in the Rotary Club of Bethesda, Daniel Fisher in particular, who's here with us today, did a very early on disaster relief grant that was $57,000. My district contributed about $200,000 in direct and support to the RI Disaster Relief Fund. Excuse me. I was looking for a way to access those disaster relief funds at scale. And James actually put me in touch with Daniel. We met at the Houston Convention, and we started a process of putting together a way to construct multi-district grants using this network, this amazing network that James and his club had put together. That resulted in a grant that was, and I may have shut it off, or they shut me off. That resulted in an initial grant with 7 districts, some of you are here in this room, $175,000 in consumable and durable medical equipment that went directly to Ukraine. That grant was closed in 45 days. Subsequent to that, we put together a coalition of 15 districts. We received the funds this week from Rotary International Disaster Relief Fund for $375,000. That is paying for consumable medical supplies, durable medical supplies, wound care equipment, portable x-ray machines. That's all going to be delivered in country. That grant will be closed in 30 days. So where are we going from here? We're actually looking to put together another additional round of 20 districts to basically repeat the same process, but what we'd like to add to that is the ability to add these reverse osmosis water filtration units that are going to supply. There's been some unique challenges to water sanitation in Ukraine. These will supply potable water to 1,000 people a day, and they're portable, and they can be moved from areas that are under conflict. So last slide, our contact information is up there. I wish we had more time. We do not, but we're certainly happy to field any questions that you have, and please feel free to reach out to any of us. I keep shutting it off. I'm sorry, but come see us afterwards. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Appreciate it.
I'm Amelia Stansel. I'm the district governor nominee in 7610 and part of the irresistible class, so go us. But first of all, I just want to say thank you to John and James. That was incredible. As a current club president, I can't even begin to fathom what it would be like to have that kind of crisis happen, and to see Rotarians come together and create partnerships and respond. That's the beauty and the magic. That's that awesome sauce of Rotary. So I'm just so thankful to hear that story and to see how we just constantly come back together, whatever the need is around the world. Well, the next person that's going to speak really needs no introduction at all. Marshall already did it. So with that, welcome John Hewko.
Good morning. Thank you, Amelia, for that perfect introduction. Short and sweet. Thank you so much. Thanks again to Director Jeremy, Michelle, for the invitation to be here today. Congratulations to you and Cynde and your fantastic team for really putting on what was, I think we can all agree, was a fabulous summit. I also like to thank my aide, Carl Trelevin. He's in the back with Lena. Thank you so much for making sure I got to where I needed to get to. And Chris Ford, if you're here, Chris, thank you for getting me here from the airport, and thank you for all your help in a number of other logistical things. So thanks so much. We just heard a very inspiring presentation by James and John in terms of what's happening in Ukraine and the extraordinary outpouring of support that we've seen globally for that horrific war that's unfolding here. And I just did want to give a shout out to a partner organization. We recently signed a memorandum of understanding with Welcome.us, which is a program that the Biden administration put together to put sponsors and refugees together. And it started in the aftermath of the Afghan withdrawal, but it's now expanded to refugees writ large, with a huge focus now on Ukraine, of course, given the scale of the refugee crisis. We do have a formal partnership with Welcome.us. We have a representative, Denise Bell. Denise, are you here? From Welcome. And also Fergal McCarthy from our RI staff is working on that partnership. So if you have Rotarians in your district who are interested in sponsoring a refugee, whether it be Ukrainian or whatever, Welcome.us provides a platform, training materials to help you become an effective sponsor of refugees, be it Ukrainian or otherwise. I thought it'd be helpful just so you put a name to a face, and again, I would encourage members in your district to utilize Welcome and our relationship with Welcome as you support Ukrainian refugees. Now, I've been asked to share my thoughts about the future of Rotary, the state of Rotary. And as you know, every year the United States President gives a State of the Union address to the U.S. Congress, and certainly, as far as I can remember, they all tend to start their speech with something along the lines of, my fellow Americans, the state of our union is strong. And so let me continue in that vein and state, my fellow Rotarians, the future of Rotary is very, very bright. But, and I'll get to that but in a minute. But first, I thought it might be just helpful to summarize where we stand today as an organization from a global perspective. Of course, the big story over the last 2.5 years has been this horrific COVID pandemic. And I must say that each and every one of us can be extraordinarily proud of how Rotary, on a global level, has reacted and weathered this crisis. In March of 2020, the RI Secretariat and the entire Rotary world had to move to a virtual format. And of course, there was great concern among staff at the Secretariat, Rotarians around the world, senior leadership, how this would affect Rotary's operations, our fundraising, our membership, our finances, etc. And there's no question that we responded as only Rotarians can. We adapted, we changed, and we came through, I would say, the crisis with flying colors. And so from an operational perspective, the Secretariat, we didn't miss a beat. We continued to support Rotarians to the same high level that we did pre-COVID. We had to pivot very quickly to organize virtual events, virtual convention, a virtual IA, virtual board and trustee meetings, committee meetings, etc. Fairly heavy technological lift, a steep learning curve. We provided helpful tools for clubs to adapt to the new circumstances. In fact, I would say within the Secretariat, there are areas that were actually busier, had more work than they did pre-COVID, because precisely this need to pivot and begin to operate in now this hybrid, or at the beginning at least fully virtual environment. So again, operationally, during the crisis, I don't think we missed a beat. And now as life is returning to our new normal, I can state with a great deal of confidence that, again, from an operational perspective, our organization is in a very, very strong position. With respect to fundraising, during the COVID period, we actually broke all of our fundraising efforts and records. And so this is a testament to the generosity, of our Rotarians around the world, that in spite of COVID, in spite of the difficulties that the entire world was going through, our Rotarians contributed more to our Rotary Foundation during the course of the pandemic than at any time during the history of our great organization. There was a lot of fear that we were going to lose membership, that we're going to see a significant decline in membership because of COVID. In fact, membership last year actually increased globally, actually increased slightly. And then finally, our financial position. Both the RI and TRF reserves remain very high, and I think we were in a great position, and we still are in a great position to weather any similar crises coming to us in the future. But I think that perhaps the most important consequence of COVID and the COVID pandemic was this. You know, there was no question that COVID was a once-in-a-generational tragedy for the world. Millions of people have died, millions of people have become ill, enormous stress on economies and on health systems. But for Rotary, there was one silver lining for this as a result of this pandemic. You know, for years we've been trying to encourage Rotarians to adopt and utilize technology. And it was not easy. We are a very traditional organization. We have some great traditions. But we were really struggling with getting Rotarians around the world to embrace and adopt technology to do things perhaps in a new and different way. And then in March of 2020, we had no choice. The entire Rotary world had to move to a new way of doing business. And it worked. And we showed ourselves that we can effectively utilize technology. And that, I think, is a huge step forward for our organization. So I think now, thanks to COVID, we've seen that we are using technology effectively. We're strengthening our organization, and both from an operational and from a financial perspective, we're expanding our reach, we're increasing our member engagement. So the state of Rotary, as I speak, again now from an operational, financial, and membership perspective, if looked at from a global perspective, from a global level, I think is extremely, extremely strong. And now for the but. You know, I often get asked by Rotarians, sort of what are the things that keep me up at night? Of course, there's a lot of things that keep me up at night, but I'd say that there are 6 in particular that stand out. And I go through these 6 concerns, not necessarily from a negative perspective, but really from the point of view of we now have an opportunity to look at some of these challenges, to address them, and to really take our extraordinary organization to even greater levels, because we do have an absolutely incredible organization. I'm now in my 12th year as your General Secretary, and I still am surprised as I travel the Rotary world, as I learn more and more about the absolutely incredible things that Rotarians do around the world. And we've had numerous examples presented at this summit of that fantastic work. And I think all of you experience the fact that if you're talking to an outsider, somebody who's not a Rotarian, and you begin to explain to them what we do, their eyes, their mouth, they're in awe. They can't believe. And so in some ways we're the world's sort of best kept secret. And we didn't get there by doing things poorly. We didn't get there by doing things badly. We got to where we are today by doing many, many things well. And I would say the things we did well probably outnumber what we didn't do well by 1,000 to 1. And each and every one of you has played an extraordinarily important role in all of the great things that we've done in the past, and you're going to play, and I would urge you, and I will ask you to continue to play a role to get us to where we need to be in the future. And so despite of all the extraordinary success we've had, I think it's time we do need to step back and be honest with ourselves. We need to be frank and open with respect to the challenges that we face, and realize that particularly here in North America, Rotary is in my view, at a historic crossroads. We're at a historic moment here in North America in our incredible 117-year journey. And I think as we look forward to our future and determine how we're going to navigate this historic moment, our actions, I think, need to be guided by that oft-repeated quote from Paul Harris. And that is, a Rotary needs to be evolutionary at all times and revolutionary occasionally. And so the 6 things that keep me up at night, I think, represent a call to action to do exactly that, to take Paul's prophetic and sage words to heart as we move our great organization forward. So what are those 6 things? Well, the first is membership. It's not new to anybody here in this room. It's been discussed at length at this summit and at many summits in the past. We've been talking about it for years. And we all know the figure. For the last 20, 25 years, our membership has been flat of Rotarians at 1.2 million. But that's only because of the fact that we're seeing significant membership growth in Asia, Africa, parts of Eastern Europe. But here in the United States, in Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, we have, and there's no other way to describe it, a membership crisis. As Jeffrey Cadrat mentioned in his remarks the other day, for the first time in Rotary's history, Rotarians in North America have fallen below 30% of the worldwide total. And as we project out and as we look at membership trends, if this current trends continue, within 10 years, North America will be at 15% and Asia will be at 50%. And that's fantastic. It's awesome that we've got growth in those countries, in those regions. But we need to grow Rotary everywhere. And I think even if we look at this from a purely parochial governance perspective, North America lost a board seat at the last rezoning. We went from 6 North American board members to 5. And there's no question that if the current trends continue at the next rezoning, North America will lose 1, perhaps 2 board seats down to 4 or 3. And so even from that parochial point of view, in terms of having North America have an influence on how Rotary operates globally, it's a very, very important issue. And finally, also as Jeffrey mentioned in his remarks, over the last few years, we've seen on average about 150,000 people join Rotary globally every year, but we also seen 150,000 people leave our organization. And so we're really faced with a perfect storm in some ways of dramatic loss of membership in a number of historically key regions around the world, coupled with the general global challenge of retaining those who actually decided to join our organization. So what do we do? And again, I suspect 10 Rotarians are going to get 15 sort of points of view in terms of what we do about this membership crisis that we're facing here in North America. But for me, it's pretty straightforward. We are, in effect, selling a product to the marketplace. We're not selling soap, we're not selling cars, we're not selling potato chips. What we are selling is the club experience. That's our product. And people pay for that club experience with their time and their money. And what we're seeing, and the data doesn't lie, is that people are either not buying our product in this part of the world, or when they buy it, it wasn't what it was supposed to be, or cracked out to be, or marketed to be. And so it seems to me we have 2 options. We can continue to do the same thing over and over again and hope for a different result, I think which in the words of Albert Einstein is the definition of insanity, I guess. Or we can do things differently by either improving the product that we have or offering new products that the market finds appealing. And so for me, this means in practice growing Rotary through new and innovative club models. Of course, if a club is doing well, there's no need to change. If the traditional model is working for a given club or a district or region, there's no need to change. And we see many regions around the world where the traditional model is still extraordinarily appealing and doing very, very, very well. There, of course, you don't need to change. And of course, as Jeffrey also mentioned, there's, what can never change, what's immutable is our core values. And that's the 4-way test, the focus on service, fellowship, ethics, integrity. Those things can never change. That's the essence of Rotary. That's our DNA. But meeting frequency, for example, in my view, it's not a value. ringing a bell or singing a song are great things, but they're not the value. That's not the essence of what makes Rotary. Rather, those are, in my view at least, the vessels through which we deliver our values. And again, we're finding that that vessel that we offer to the public is no longer as attractive as it used to be. And so now we have great flexibility, tremendous flexibility that clubs and governors have that come into play. There's no Rotary police, as I like to say. And so when we preserve our core values while at the same time utilizing this flexibility and creativity that we have both with our current clubs and establishing new clubs, we've shown that we can have great success. The passport clubs are mushrooming all over the place. They don't comply with the rules. I just ran into, earlier in the summit, ran into Patrick Longano of the Rotary Club of Foothills in North Carolina. He updated me on these new impact companion clubs that are being created. And they're taking the satellite model and giving it a little bit of a tweak, because a lot of clubs are concerned, why would we set up a satellite model which is only going to result in clubs breaking away? Instead, they're setting up a companion club. You're a member of the home club, you pay the dues, you pay the RI dues, but you don't need to go to meetings, but you can go to service projects. And so it brings in people who want to be part of Rotary but don't have the time to go to weekly or bi-weekly meetings. And now there are 14 impact companion clubs in 3 zones, and 36 more are in the works. So I know, Patrick, if you're here, if you could just stand up. Reach out to Patrick if you're interested in finding more about this, because this is the kind of innovation that we need to do. And here's where I'm going to have a plea to all of you here. As PDGs, you are influencers in your district. You can be a force for change, or you can be a force for staying the way we are. And I would ask you, with the greatest of respect, to be those champions of change, because we need to change. There is no other way around the crisis that we're facing here in the United States and Canada and the other countries that I mentioned. You've made extraordinary contributions to our organization. Please continue to do that by being champions of change, because this, in my view, is an existential issue for Rotary here in North America. Second, and I know I'm out of time, but I'll go quickly through the other 5 things that keep me up at night. The second, and it builds on the membership issue, and that is, will we remain relevant? Perhaps some of you have heard Michael McQueen, who's a Rotarian out of Australia, talk about what he calls the relevance curve, where organizations sort of have a natural life cycle where they move up the relevance curve, they hit the top, and then they stop dropping. And at some point, they reach that point on the relevance curve where they cannot survive. And that's what happened to Kodak. They had an extraordinary brand, an extraordinary product, film, but they didn't realize that the world was moving digital. And yet they kept thinking that they were a film company, and they kept trying to market and package film better. What they were, in the end, was they were in the memory business. They weren't in the film business. And even though they developed the first digital camera, they didn't capitalize on that, and they wound up, this great iconic American brand went bankrupt. And similarly, I would argue that we need to realize that we aren't in the formal meeting, adherence to the rules, memorize the manual of procedure business, but rather we're in the business of bringing people together through a variety of channels and formats to make a difference, to change the world, to grow as individuals, to network professionally, and to have fun. And so I would again urge all of us here in North America that we need to rally to make sure we don't hit that point of no return on the relevance curve. Third, will we be nimble enough to react in today's world? We are like an aircraft carrier. Once we get pointed in a certain direction, we're unstoppable. But it's a ship that's very, very difficult to turn and change direction. You know, there's tremendous competition out there. There's many organizations that offer networking opportunities and many that offer service opportunities. You know, technology, everything is changing at an extraordinarily rapid pace. And so the question is, will our aircraft carrier, this extraordinary aircraft carrier, be nimble enough to adapt to the changing times? And here I'm a bit concerned. You know, it took us 9 years to roll out Future Vision. And it's turned out to be a success, but it took 9 years. The Shaping Rotary's Future Committee, and John and Barry can attest with, you know, bruises all over their bodies, how difficult that has been to just move forward and even just get 2 pilots going in Zones 8 and in Great Britain and Ireland. So we do have examples of attempted change in the past, and it has taken us quite a bit of time. So that's the third. Are we going to be nimble enough? The fourth, continuity. The challenges we face, globally now I'm talking about, require 10 years of systemic, continuous, strategic focus. And again, as Jeffrey mentioned in his remarks, we are designed by choice, and there's very valid reasons for that, to be discontinuous. That is how we are structured, to be discontinuous, with our leadership changing annually up and down our organization's structure. And so the challenge we have is, how do we, in this structure that we have of continuous leadership change, maintain that continuity, which is really the only way that we're going to be able to address some of these difficult issues that we're facing in our organization. And as Jennifer mentioned, Jennifer Gordon and Stephanie, I think, are aligned, working in lockstep in terms at the presidential level, and the same needs to happen at the regional level, at the district level, and at the club level. There needs to be a continuous strategic plan. And again, Jeffrey talked about something that's extraordinarily important, the lexicon we use: my year, my directors, my board, my this, my that. We need to get away from that and say, it's not my year, it's the year that I am district governor, and in this year I'm going to fulfill what the strategic plan calls for in my year. And that's a difficult concept to get around. But here's what happens in the real world. People applaud, people say, yes, we need to do that. And that's what's happened. And then you step out into the coffee break, and I'll have PDGs come up to me and say, during my year I did this, and during my year I had this theme, and during my year I did this. And so it's very difficult to break. And I find myself falling into that again. How did your year go? It's a deep tradition that we have that's going to be very difficult to break, but I do think we need to act strategically, and that's going to require continuity, and it's going to require, frankly, a change in lexicon. Fifth, our next global project, and let me just state unequivocally that our principal global corporate initiative is eradicating polio. We need to get that done. There's no question about that. We're on the cusp. We need to continue to support the polio eradication efforts. Having said that, we do now need to begin, in my view, thinking about what our next corporate project is going to be. Because it's not like you eradicate polio on March 15th, 2026, and say, gee, what are we going to do tomorrow? Let's do X. And it's going to be a challenge because with 1.4 million Rotary members, I think we're going to get 1.7 million points of view in terms of what that project should be. And then there's a big discussion of whether we even should have one. And I think we clearly do need to have one. Polio has elevated our prestige, our exposure, our PR, to an extent we never could have done had we not had something as monumental as polio. And so what's that next project going to be? I don't know. We need to figure it out. But I do think it needs to include three elements. And the Harvard Business School asked me a few years ago to write a piece about how Rotary was able, over such a long period of time, to maintain that singular focus on polio. And I said there were three elements in polio that I think need to be in a future project. One, it was something that every Rotarian understood back in 1985. It was in 125 countries. It wasn't some exotic disease in a far-off place. Second, you could participate in polio eradication beyond check writing. The polio vaccine, the oral vaccine, allowed each and every one of us to vaccinate children, to go on NIDs. I know when I went on my first one in India, I was in a slum in Mumbai, in a small room, vaccinating children as the mothers were bringing them in. And I looked out the window, and I saw 4 kids crawling across the street with polio. At that point, polio eradication for me became not just some abstract concept or something I physically did in terms of putting drops of vaccine into child's mouths, but it became deeply, deeply emotional. And that's happened to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Rotarians through the years who are now emotionally invested in the cause. And so the second element, I think, is it has to be something that Rotarians can do beyond check writing. And third, and perhaps most importantly, it has to be a clear, measurable end date. You need to be able to say, we have gotten to point X in a measurable, objective, data-driven way. Polio has that. The next project, in my view, has to have that as well. And then finally, let me just close by the sixth thing, and that is the growing regionalization. There's been a lot of talk about it at various breakout sessions at this summit, so I don't want to sort of go over old ground. But Rotary is changing. It's evolving differently in different places. Just as Paul Harris said would happen, Rotary needs to be evolutionary at all times. And so there are regional differences, and we need to think through now, how do we utilize this in a way that strengthens our organization? So we have these 2 pilots in Zone 8, and in RIBI. It only affects those 2 areas. It does not affect anything that any other Rotarian in the world does or operates or our structure anywhere outside those 2 pilot areas. But it does set the stage for other regions now, if they wish to begin thinking about innovative ways of operating, of governing themselves, they can begin to do that. So those are some of the challenges that I think we're dealing with as a global organization. But I'm very optimistic. We're certainly better off, relatively, than Lions, Kiwanis, Optimists, some of our fellow service organizations. But I do think we also need to be realists. The challenges here, particularly in North America, are not going to go away, and the numbers don't lie. But I'm confident that if we embrace club flexibility, if we put our action plan into life, if we grow Rotary with new and innovative clubs, if we take a long, hard look in the mirror and not get defensive about our challenges or nostalgic about how Rotary used to be, we will achieve our dreams. Jeffrey again talked about growing Rotary to 2, 3, or more million members. That should be the dream of each and every one of us. And there's no reason that can't happen, but it will require all of us to embrace thoughtful change and to be willing to do things differently. As I said earlier, our organization is a great gift to humanity, and we can't let that gift wither away. And so I end with the phrase that I started with at the beginning of my remarks. The future of Rotary is very, very bright. And with your leadership and your support, our great organization, this extraordinary gift to humanity, will get past the bumps in the road, and it will continue to fulfill its destiny, and will continue to make an even greater difference in the lives of millions and millions of people around the world. Thank you very much.
All right. Good morning. I am PDG Gary Gunter from District 6890.
And I'm Patrick Eakes, also past governor from District 7690.
All right, good morning. Hey, we'd like to give many thanks to John Hewko for his presentation and for all of his great work over the years. Thank you, John, and thank you equally to your staff that you've allowed to come help us during this summit. You know, Patrick and I were talking about how we could help you as leaders present the Melbourne Convention and encourage your members in your clubs and districts to come. And so we said, well, Rotarians love the four-way test, so why don't we convert our promo into that and encourage you to use that. So let's do that this morning. First, is it the truth? Have you registered? Well, why, they might ask? First of all, President Jennifer Jones invited us, and there she is. And you know, I'd like for all of you to share that with your members. President Jennifer Jones personally invited each and every one of us. So, as Bishop Wilson said this morning, time is valuable. So what more valuable use of your time could you have than to join with Rotarians from around the world and imagine what's next? So tell them that and remind them of the great speakers we've had in the past in Houston with the Orion Jean, the Time Magazine's Kid of the Year, Changing the World one project at a time, the doctor from Ukraine who shared with us the horrors of the war and drove us to tears, the many speakers over the years, Bill Gates, Ashton Kutcher, John Cena, Jane Goodall, Jack Nicklaus, the list goes on and on. So tell them that and remind them that December 15th is a good date to focus on to get registered before the registration price increases. Patrick, number 2.
Okay, so when you finish with the general sessions each day around noon, then the question is, have you booked activities for all concerned? There will be plenty to do. There'll be a giant house of friendship. There'll be many breakout sessions. If that's not your cup of tea, you can go to the website for the convention, and you'll be able to see a huge array of activities that are available to you. In fact, I think that the host organizing committee has already built out more activities than we typically would have this far out from the convention. Opportunities that will be local. You've got the Great Ocean Road, the Penguin Parade that's not too far away. Melbourne itself is the sports and cultural capital of Australia, so you have plenty of opportunities there within the city. And of course, we will have our Southland gathering. I can't tell you yet if it'll be a breakfast or we have to ship grits down to Australia, or if it might be more of a cocktail reception. We are working on that right now, trying to get that nailed down, and we'll have information coming out to you soon.
Number 3, will you build goodwill and better friendships by participating in a tour before or after the convention? Well, of course you want to do that. And the Rotary Melbourne 2023.org website is full of ideas for tours in Melbourne, outside of Melbourne, even on to New Zealand. And if you want a longer tour, our good friend Brad Howard, the former RI director, has put together tours with his company, howardtours.net, where you can go and look at tours just for Rotarians before or after the convention. Or even look in the Rotary magazine for other tours that are listed. Patrick?
So what's the fourth part of the four-way test? Wow, get another cup of coffee. Will it be beneficial to all concerned? So let's mention one of the great, this is actually for those of you who are in Sydney, you'll remember that we had the opportunity to travel in that area for free just by showing a registration badge. When we are in Australia, we will be able to take advantage of the largest tram network in the world, which is what Melbourne has. The site for the general sessions, which is the Rod Laver Arena, their large tennis facility, and the area where the breakouts and the House of Friendship will be, are about a mile apart. Now, it's a beautiful walk along the river, but there will also be continuous tram service that'll make it easy for you to go between those two venues or to visit other parts of the Central Business District.
So we do have to address the elephants in the room. Number 1, will there be 100-degree weather days at this convention?
No.
No. No, 50s and 60s, really nice weather. That's why you can walk between the venues, have a great time walking around in Melbourne. Secondly, wow, they might say that's a long flight. Well, yes, it could be, but while you can go from Qantas direct to Melbourne through LA, San Francisco, or Dallas, you can also go through JFK, through Auckland or Sydney, or even consider other things like going through Fiji, breaking it up into smaller pieces, or even Tahiti, or going through Hawaii. So you can really make this into the trip of a lifetime very easily. And I just found out today that American Airlines put the flights to Auckland on sale yesterday for February and March, so I believe they're sure to do that in a couple months, again, for our time period. So keep track of that. You can use an app like Hopper or Scott's Cheap Flights, or just contact us. Patrick and I will help you each step of the way.
For a small travel agent fee. Those of you who were in Sydney had the opportunity to learn what a beautiful country Australia is and the incredibly welcoming citizens of that country. Every time, my wife and I at that time, we had our 8 and our 10-year-old with us. There were times where we looked maybe just a little bit lost. 30 seconds, 45 seconds, somebody would walk right up and said, "Can I help you, mate?" I'm not even going to try to do the accent because I can't do that. But such welcoming, incredible people of that country. So we hope that you will take advantage of that. And if I can leave you with just one last thing to think about. Jennifer, could you stand for a second? Can you all imagine an event that Jennifer convenes being anything other than spectacular? I can't.
It is going to be a fantastic show, a great opportunity to enrich the experience, not only for you, but for the Rotarians in your district. So we look forward to assisting you all with promoting this great convention within your district. We do have promotional materials that we'll be supplying to you, some that we have already supplied within your districts. You let us know when you need anything else. We are available to assist you with that process. And the last thing we'll say is we look forward to seeing you next May of 2023 in Melbourne.
Good day.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians and guests. My name is Marcy Ullom. I am a past district governor from District 6990, and I have had the privilege of serving on this year's executive committee. As Rotarians, we're involved in so many different projects and programs, it's really difficult to try to figure out how we should focus the summit program. This year we made the decision to build on 6 themes. These themes are important and priority for our leaders. They are important and priority for Rotarians, and they are important to our success. But there's more. So starting the week of October 11th, week after next, we will have 4 virtual breakouts that you and any Rotarian in your district can participate in. You will be getting information about that 2 or 3 times over the next week and a half. The first starts with October 11th, which happens to be International Day of the Girl. And we're going to be focusing on empowering girls and women. Dawn and Tina, our co-ambassadors for our Empowering Girls and Women in Zones 33 and 34, have pulled together a panel of folks that are talking about programs that your clubs can do. So we're looking at impact, we're looking at sustainability, and we're looking at replicability. On October 13th, Dave McCleary, Amelia Stansel, and Pete Dara have brought together professionals who have worked in the trafficking area, including a former U.S. attorney and ambassador to the Trafficking in Persons U.S. State Department, the former White House director and involvement with DOJ for human trafficking, and a survivor who will share her story, a story of hope. On October 17th, we're going to focus on our newest area of focus, the environment. It will be a panel hosted by past RI President Barry, and we're going to be looking at a broad spectrum of environmental issues, including rising oceans, the importance of mangrove protection and plantings, and the value of bees and the synergistic role they play in our environment. And then we bring it home on October 19th with a session on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That will be facilitated by past RI Vice President Valerie Wafer and Chair of the Rotary International DEI Committee, and she will be joined by the Chair of the Board of Directors, Canadian Hearing Services, Miss Wheelchair America 2023, and a disability consultant. If you go to, oh, I see you have this. If you have the QR code, you can go and register. If you go to the Be More Rotary website that was up for Baltimore, there is now a tab that has post-summit information and registration. And then again, you will be getting an email, 2 or 3 emails. Please make sure governors, governors-elect, and governors nominee that these go to the Rotarians in your districts who are interested in leading the efforts on your behalf. Thank you so much.
What we really hope to do with that, the breakout programs, is to really extend the impact of this summit way beyond the summit itself. How was last night? Did we not have an amazing time? I can tell you something, the band looked shocked. Did you see that? This is Rotary? I think they thought they had the wrong book in there. I imagine them going home and Googling and saying, what is this Rotary organization? It can't be the one that we've heard of, my grandfather's a member of. Absolutely, this is not our grandfather or our father's Rotary. What I saw last night exemplified what Rotary is all about. All of us together, having fun, being strong. and getting ready to deliver amazing impact in our communities, in our districts, and across the world when we get back home. So, like the rest of the summit, it's really all been about you. When we sat in our planning session, the very first planning session, what we said we wanted to achieve was to give you the experience that you would take away with you, knowing just what Rotary is. It's what we can do in our communities. And you'd heard there from General Secretary John just how strong we are, but what we've got to do to continue to become strong, stay strong, as we deliver transformational change across the world. Now, so we hope that you feel you've been able to be more in Baltimore. Have you felt be more in Baltimore? And now we'd like to tell you where you're going to be more next year. So in order to do that, I'm going to invite back to the stage that prescient, all-knowing being that we've met a couple of times before in previous summits, and he was on the stage earlier, and I'm not sure if he's been able to have time to transform into his persona. Is the Karnak in there? Is Karnak? Oh, the amazing Karnak! Karnak, I was earlier given an envelope, hermetically sealed, torn on the corner, I'm not quite sure. Someone must have been trying to bite their way into it, but haven't succeeded. In this envelope is an exciting piece of information. I'd like you to use your incredibly awesome powers to determine.
You should already know this. The incredibly awesome powers. Go ahead.
I'll give you the envelope.
I, of course, am the only one who can divine the contents of this envelope. Swimming with Pigs, Pirates, Bahama Mama, and Zone Summit 2023. It is Nassau, Bahamas.
Fellow Rotarians, Rotaractors, Interactors, we invite you to join us next year in Nassau, Bahamas, the beautiful Atlantis Hotel, the Zone Summit, Impact Summit, Be More in Bahamas, 2023-24.
You don't have to worry or even say you're sorry when you hear the Joker do. If you feel a rhythm or a new sensation, makes you wanna get up and dance. Shake your body like you're crazy. Jump around and count like you're mad. Dance, shake, jump, whine, move, groove, twist. All time. Dance, shake, jump, and whine. Everybody, join the party. This what Joker moves about. Oh, dance,
General Chair Cynde, can I invite you to the stage, please?
jump, whine, move, groove.
Pump the music up. This is not the Caribbean level of music. Thank you.
If you see a neighbor or your pastor's daughter dancing like they out of control, even if you're Annie looking very happy, don't look strange, that's the way Junkanoo go. The rhythm of Junkanoo is supposed to make you move. Don't feel strange, count back, shake your body like you're crazy, jump around and count like you're mad. Dance,
information about the upcoming events. It is on the Be More Rotary website. That will be making a shift so that you'll be seeing everything about the Atlantis. But you can make your hotel reservations now. You remember we sold out our entire block here and we had to go to an overflow hotel. There are no overflow hotels. So go ahead and make your reservations early. It's on the website. It's the last week of October, and all of the details are there for you to look at.
Thank you, Cynde. Okay, guys, has anyone got an Advil? I could do with an Advil if you could pass it up now. I think the So, Cynde, if you could stay on the stage, please, I'd appreciate that. Yeah. Oh yeah, I was going to say there are no hotel rooms, but we have overflow hammocks on the beach. So if you want to bring a hammock down there are lots of coconut trees that you're able to work with there. So it's been an amazing experience, as I said. When we sat at that first meeting to plan this event, I said to Cynde, I'm going to leave it to you to pick a team that is going to be able to deliver. And the most important thing is that that team delivers the best possible event for our customers, you. Because, as I said, this has all been about trying to give you the experience to be more so you can take it back to your communities. We've heard some positive comments, but I'd now like to invite that team up that's delivered the work. What if I find the paper? Give these guys a round of applause, please.
Marshall, 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 Marshall.
So let me introduce them and recognize them individually for the amazing work they did. Mr. Logistics, Darren Keys. Darryl, at a time when his home was under serious threat and damage, Darryl was still here. He went through some really tough times when he was here, but you didn't see him do anything but smile and persevere. Darryl, thank you so much. You're an epitome of a Rotarian. Thank you, as you all are. Chris Jones, the Master of Registration. Did that go smoothly or what? It sort of helped that he owns DAC-DB, but that's one of those things. So Chris, thanks for putting DAC-DB to work with us. Arrangement Chair, Sean Sawyer. Sean, amazing job. Script, please. Marcy Ullom. Marcy kept us on there. Our marketing man, great website with his team, amazing job. Alex Wilkins, thank you. The educator, trainer, motivator, and Karnak. Patrick Eakes, seminar lead, team seminar lead. None other than our what can I say? The second most famous Scotsman in the world, George Robertson-Burnett, and operations. The master mixer, Marshall Butler. Marshall, you did an amazing job in your team. Larry Lassiter, our treasurer, unfortunately had to leave early. His home is in the path and has been in the path of the hurricane as it's turned its way up there. But let's give Larry a warm round of applause in his absence. Larry's done a great job with the budget as treasurer. And last but not least, in any way, shape or form, but in fact most, I have 3 bosses in the world at this point in time. And they all are amazingly strong women. One's sitting there smiling there. The other one's in the room at the back, my boss, Jen. But during these past 2 weeks, I have to say, the most important person by my side, and I think by your side, has been none other than Cynde Covington. She's done an amazing job. So they've worked really hard, and we want to give them a reward for doing that, and I'm going to give them all a trip to the Bahamas next year, because this is going to be your committee for the Bahamas next year. When I say I'd also like to recognize everyone else who's been involved. Each of these teams had teams under them and there were some amazing people here. So can I ask everybody who's a subcommittee chair, anyone who's been involved in any way, shape or form, please stand and be recognized because you've done an amazing job. Thank you, the sergeants in particular. Sergeants, you've done an amazing job. The aides, everyone in the training teams, thank you so much. And the presenters, of course. You want to hang on? We got some planning to do for next year. Sean.
We actually have one little surprise for all of you. Hopefully you all have appreciated the efforts of team arrangements in dressing up these tables and making this room just a little bit more attractive in any way possible. You'll see that the canvases from yesterday are back on the tables, and if you are seated in a chair that has a star affixed to the back of it, the canvas on the table now belongs to you. If the star is on an empty chair, the first one to grab the canvas is the new proud owner. And if you're near a table with no one seated at it, you may take more than one canvas home with you. Thank you.
And we've got a few empty tables over here. The star is on the frame of the chair, by the way. So if you hadn't noticed, if you're looking on the fabric, you won't find it there. Okay, does everyone got their piece? Yep, okay, wonderful, thanks. And those pieces are the photographs that made up the book that were presented to President Jen yesterday. So how did you enjoy the summit? How did you enjoy the presenters? We had some amazing keynote speakers, and you saw me yesterday present special guest Paul Harris Fellows to our 4 keynote speakers, and we thank them so much, along with everyone else who presented. But after yesterday's session, there was 2 young ladies that beautiful young ladies, I was significantly impressed by, and I think we all were. We all felt the voice of youth. And I'd like to ask President Jen to come forward at this point in time. President Jen, good morning, President Jen. Thanks for being with us. I'd also like those 2 amazing young ladies, Hannah, who spoke about the voice of Interact, and Giselle, who spoke about Rotaract. Could you both come forward, please? When General Secretary John talks about the state of Rotary's future being strong, this is, in my opinion, where the strength is coming from in Rotary's future. And Hannah and Giselle, President Jen and I had the opportunity to talk last night, and we decided that you both deserve a similar accolade to our keynote speakers. In your journey in Rotary, we now want to make you Paul Harris Fellows. The only challenge is, no matter how good the Rotary Foundation is, it's not good enough to get the regalia sent from Evanston from Saturday night to Sunday morning. Okay? However, we will arrange that, and we'll arrange an opportunity for that to happen. But what we would like to do, both President Jen and I, is to take our theme pins in place of the regalia and give it to you as a temporary holding location. You'll have noticed that we've been not only using big words, but you've also seen big words on the stage over the last several days. It started on first day with ACT, the word ACT, and it challenged us to act, to step up, to be people of action as we know we are. Yesterday, we extended that word into impact, and we hope the summit was as impactful for you as it was for us. We hope we left you feeling like you not only wanted to be more Rotary in Baltimore, but be more impactful in your clubs and districts and across the world as we move home. And yesterday, of course, we asked you to imagine. We spent an amazing day with Rotary International President Jennifer, and please let's sound an applause to Jennifer for the tremendous presence here. Jennifer, thank you so much for being you and being here. And today, we've ended with magic. The magic you saw earlier, the magic of Rotary, will continue to happen. And in other words, we start with our imagination, but through our actions and impact, we aim to create magic in our world. So let's go back to our communities and make that magic happen, please. We focused during this summit on programs, projects, and most importantly, our people, you. From our fantastic speakers to you, Rotary's leadership, people of action throughout zones 33, 34, who will make things happen. President Jennifer has challenged us to imagine Rotary and encouraged us to dream. So, my friends, dream with me. Dream with President Jennifer. Let's imagine what our world could be. Let's dream a million dreams of the world that we imagine and can impact. Thank you so much for being here. We've loved being with you. Have a safe journey home and see you next year.